Last year, 2 entire truckloads of Guy Fieri's premium tequila worth over $1 million vanished without a trace. I will say this, starting 2026, having Guy Fieri be the face of cargo theft was not on my supply chain bingo card. There was no high-speed chase, no guns, and the drivers, they weren't even in on it. The trucks were stolen by ghosts using nothing more than a laptop and a phone from over 7,000 miles away. This wasn't a simple robbery. It's a new breed of crime called strategic cargo theft. It's been on the rise over the last 2 years. And that single heist is just one tiny piece of a hidden $35 billion a year crisis that makes everything you and I pay for just a little bit more expensive. In this video, I'm gonna show you how these heists are pulled off and why they're almost impossible to stop, and how this shadow economy impacts your wallet day in and day out. By the end of this, you'll never look at a truck on the highway the same. So how do you steal $1 million worth of tequila without ever touching the truck? Well, you run a shell game. We've seen it in other industries. It's happening to logistics day in and day out now. And for Guy Fieri and his Santo tequila, it all started like it should in Jalisco, Mexico, where 24,000 bottles of Santo tequila were distilled, bottled, packaged, and loaded on trucks. What we thought was for the customer. The trucks crossed the border into Laredo, Texas, and were transferred on 2 US semis for the final leg of their journey to the warehouse in Pennsylvania. It's what we know as cross-border freight in the industry, from Mexico northbound into the US. The same thing happens southbound from US to Mexico. This type of movement happens hundreds of thousands of times without any issue. It is really common. The logistics company that was handling the shipment was known as a broker. They're the middle person in the transaction. So they did what they always do. They match up their shipper freight with a truck driver to move those goods. No different than what happened on these shipments. But here's the twist. The trucking company, they were a ghost. They looked real, but they weren't. It was a fake profile, meticulously crafted by a criminal ring, likely out of Armenia. How do you do that? Well, you can go on Facebook Marketplace right now and purchase the operating authority of a trucking company. What looks like a clean profile, no issue. Just takes a little bit of money and a little bit of time. What did they do though? They stole the identity of a real, legitimate carrier. This fake company then turned around and hired 2 real truck drivers to move that freight. It's what we know as double brokering in the industry. It's frowned upon, but unfortunately, it happens all too often. And Guy Fieri and Santos Tequila are no different. And that is when the con began. The criminals started sending fake emails and text to the shipper, Santos Tequila. Here's where my driver is. Here's what's going on. Any issues that arise, they're going to spoof it as to what went on. So what did they do? Well, they said there was a mechanical issue with the truck and it's going to be a day late. They even sent a fake video of the broken down semi just to sell the lie. Meanwhile, they also spoofed the GPS signal of the truck, because if I have the breadcrumb of where the truck is, it must be all legitimate, right? So to Santos, the truck looked like it was on the way, getting its pings, and everything was the way it should be on its way to the warehouse in Pennsylvania. But in reality, the criminals had redirected those drivers. Instead of heading eastbound to Pennsylvania, those drivers went all the way to the West Coast, to a warehouse in LA. They had doctored the paperwork. Those drivers that had no idea, well, they delivered the load, they got paid, and they drove off to their next pickup, having no idea they were part of a 7-figure heist. And by the time Santo realized that the tequila was truly gone, the product had already vanished. Half of that product had already hit the black market, poof, gone. And as crazy as that story is, it's not even a rounding error in the grand scheme of things. While official reports may tell you that cargo theft is a few $100 million problem in the US, the reality is those closer to the facts, the FBI, shippers, carriers, claims, and insurance companies, they'll tell you the number is closer to $35 billion. Why is there such a big gap? Well, number one is companies are terrified to report these stolen loads because their insurance premiums are going to go up. Oftentimes, it's easier just to write it off as a cost of doing business than to notify the appropriate parties. It's unfortunate, but it's the reality of how many companies and many individuals operate in today's world. This isn't a small-time crime. These are not casual criminals that just had a bad day and thought they would go do something. These are sophisticated rings that are deep in intelligence, and they know exactly what to do. It's a full-blown shadow economy. That's what's been built over the last couple of years with this issue. The American Trucking Associates, or ATA, estimates that $19 million of goods are stolen every single day just in the US alone. In the most sophisticated types of theft, the digital strategic heists like what we just described, they're up 1,500% since 2022. And it's not just trucks. In 2024, rail cargo theft jumped 40%. And at its peak in LA, thieves were hitting over 90 containers per day, leaving miles of our track looking just like this, a graveyard of our global supply chain. So you have this massive underground economy, but how does it actually work? How do bad actors get involved? What do they specifically do to make this happen without a trace? So cargo theft comes in three main flavors typically. First is straight theft. Think of the old school, this is what you probably think of, brute force. Cutting locks, cutting through fences, removing the trailer doors off, taking product and putting those doors back on. Just sheer force. Get in, get out, get the product off your hands as quickly as possible. In 2010, a crew of thieves broke into an Eli Lilly pharmaceutical warehouse in Connecticut. It was like out of a movie scene from Mission Impossible with Tom Cruise. They cut a hole in the roof, they rappelled in, and they used a forklift to steal $60 million worth of antidepressants. It is still the largest pharmaceutical heist in the US history. This is high risk, high reward, and it requires a lot of physical presence. It also typically requires desperation. Second is you have rail theft. It's exploiting a vulnerability in the system. So why rail? Well, trains have to slow down as they approach rail yards or switching locations, like what we see in LA. And that is a great window of opportunity for a group of thieves to inject themselves. Thieves will jump onto a slow-moving car or to a car that's just parked, and they'll use bolt cutters to get into the lock, they'll cut the seal, and then from there, it's like Christmas morning, and it's a surprise of what they're going to get. They throw the product off to their accomplices, and that product vanishes into the black market. And third, you have strategic theft. It's the new wave. It's this digital evolution. It's the Guy Fieri heist, but it's happening every single day. It's criminals using double brokering, identity theft, GPS spoofing, stealing legitimate company profiles, and tricking the system with fictitious pickups. It's a low-risk, high-reward crime because criminals can be anywhere in the world. It creates a massive audience of bad actors to prey on our local economy. They're exploiting the very digital systems we celebrated over the last 10 to 15 years. Through these load booking platforms that we've celebrated, you don't need resources to go through. You can go connect to truck drivers in an instant now. These same celebrations that we marketed are now the core of how we are being exposed and how freight is being stolen. If this is a $35 billion a year problem just in the US alone, why can't we stop it? Because the system is perfectly designed to let them get away with it. First though, we have fragmented jurisdiction. A load is stolen in Texas by a criminal in Florida who doesn't even know that they're a criminal, who is directed by a crime ring in Armenia, and the goods end up stolen in California. Who investigates? Is it local PD, state law enforcement, federal law enforcement? Is it the FBI? Well, it's not easy. It's so many connected parties that have to be involved. Second, it's a low-risk, high-reward crime. The population that can be involved, it's no longer just 300 million Americans. It's 7 billion plus potential people because this is a global digital system that's being exploited. And what's the deterrent? The chances of getting caught are incredibly low. And even if they weren't low, the penalties are often pretty weak compared to the potential payout. If I could go collect hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars with low risk, maybe this isn't a bad idea after all. Third, there's massive underreporting. 2 years ago, I would ask folks if they're impacted by cargo theft, and everyone said no. Now, at least at supply chain conferences, cargo theft is one of the hot topics. But beyond supply chain industry experts, we're not talking about it at the national news level. It gets buried in the global economy and the global geopolitical stuff that we're talking about day in and day out. It's an open secret, though, in our industry. Unfortunately, It's a really dirty secret too. These companies are now being targeted by surgical enterprises. And finally, there's no centralized database. It's not like TSA PreCheck for airplane travelers. There's no single national system for tracking cargo theft. The FBI's data, it's voluntary. Therefore, by definition, it's incomplete. It means law enforcement can't see the patterns. They can't see what's a one-off versus what was a well-configured attack that's exposing other vulnerabilities in the same geographical area. So if few companies lose some product, why should I care? Does it really impact me and my family? Well, you're the one that ultimately pays the price. It's baked into the cost of goods sold. That $35 billion a year in losses, just in the US alone, it doesn't just disappear. And because it's baked into the cost of goods, that means higher shipping costs, higher insurance rates, higher security costs for every single company in the supply chain. It's not just the shipper or the manufacturer, it's also the distributor, the transport company, the receiver, the end customer. Everyone has higher operating costs because of this. And those costs, they're passed on directly to you as the consumer. One estimate suggests that organized retail and cargo crime costs the average American family $500 per year. It's not peanuts when you think of the full scale of 300 million Americans. This is massive. And where do the stolen products even go? We haven't really touched on that. They're sold in online marketplaces and flea markets. Remember that old adage that you were told as a kid? If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. But it's not always that. That product that was stolen can actually be funneled back into legitimate businesses. Sellers and buyers are everywhere. That buyer may not realize that the company that they're interacting with actually stole the freight. Product traceability is really, really hard. So in fact, today, when you're buying goods, it may be stolen product and you had no idea. So what's the answer? Security, higher fences, or law enforcement? The real solution though, it's a lot less dramatic, but it's far more powerful and it closes the fundamental gaps. It's no longer siloed information. It's no longer multiple systems that don't talk to each other. Cargo thieves thrive on blind spots, whether it's a paper document being forged or a driver identity not being verified, or when a trailer is dropped in the yard and no one is certain who actually picked it up or dropped it off. That's where thieves prey. The new wave of strategic theft is a direct attack on the information layer of supply chain. Therefore, the only way to fight it is with a stronger, more connected information layer. No longer is it siloed processes or siloed systems. It's connectivity across silos. No longer is it just a check-in and grabbing a trailer. It's authenticating the driver. It's connecting the paperwork. It's making sure that the carrier knows exactly who picked it up and verifies who that individual is. If I have a broker that I booked on the load, and I know that the driver picking up the load is representing a different company, how do I verify that? It's about that connection between systems that is so important in this day and age. This means moving from paper to digital. Gone are the wedding registry style notebooks that log all the driver's information. Gone are the days of not verifying that driver and the company that they operate on. Making sure that the broker knows that's exactly who they expected to pick up. That digital audit trail for every single handoff creates an unforgeable tie to the transaction, securing not only your supply chain, but your end customers too. It means having real-time visibility, not just to the truck, but also to the trailer and what product is on that trailer through the digital paperwork. It means using technology to verify with certainty that the driver showing up is exactly who you expected to show up. And not just you, but your carrier and broker as well. When you create a system where every step is digitally verified and tracked, the opportunity for thieves to inject themselves, they disappear. They no longer exist. And those ghosts, they can't operate in a system that they can't inject themselves in. This is a solvable problem though. We have the technology to build a supply chain that is resilient, secure, and transparent. And when you see how complex it is to get billions of products all across the world, you definitely gain an appreciation for the scale of the challenge. If you want to see what a truly world-class secure supply chain looks like in action, you should watch this video on how Coca-Cola delivers 2 billion drinks per day all across the world.